Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm very excited to bring you a review for the new Walmart Vintage Collection Beast Wars Scorponok. This is a mold that I have never had the opportunity to own before, so I'm personally just really excited to own any version of it, just to finally, get it in hand and, check out the play features and all that cool stuff. And it's something I'm especially excited for after the rather disappointing figure that was the Kingdom Scorponok. Now, like all of the vintage Beast Wars toys that Walmart has released, this thing does have some changes from the original, which is something that I'm not personally a fan of. I feel a reissue should be a reissue, not a redeco, not a retool, anything. Like, you call it vintage, it should look vintage. But like the other Beast Wars reissues that we've gotten recently, he has been recolored to be closer to his show colors, as opposed to the more black color scheme that the original toy had. So, if you've seen my reviews before, you know this goes. We're going to take a look at Scorponok's packaging, then we'll open it up, we'll see his instructions, and then we'll see Scorponok himself in both Beast and Robot modes. Naturally, I'll be doing plenty of very embarrassing comparisons with the Kingdom Scorponok today. Just going to give you guys a heads up, I'm going to bash that thing really hard with this. And then, as usual, at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So our Scorponok comes in a recreation of his original Mega Class packaging. The Mega Class doesn't exist anymore, but the closest thing you could compare it to is Voyager. Now, I will say that this toy is an absolute ripoff. Like, absolute ripoff. The Mega Class originally retailed for $15, and this figure at Walmart right now is $42. Like, that is almost, the price of a liter. And I mean, it's a great figure, but $42? If we use, say, the deluxe price point as like a benchmark to compare the 1996 prices to now, the deluxe Cheetor originally retailed for $10, and then his reissue retailed for $23. So that's about 130% markup. This, going from $15 to $42, is 180% markup. So he's even more of a bad deal than the Cheetor was. Now, the only thing worse than this guy was Rat Trap, who was originally a basic class toy retailing at $6, who was sold as a $23 deluxe. So he was something like a 230% markup, like really ridiculous. But at least with Rat Trap, there was kind of an excuse because they didn't want to invent like a whole separate size class, just for that one Rat Trap figure, so they sold him as a deluxe. Scorponok here is being sold as like a Mega Class toy. He's not being sold as an Ultra or Leader like the Optimus and Megatron were. So there's really no reason to mark him up this much. I mean, $42. That's insane. If they stock this guy as much as they've been stocking the first run of the Vintage Beast Wars figures, he's going to shelf warm hard and have to get, clearanced out after that first wave of people that really want him get him. Because he is one of the most egregious offenders of this price gouging. Okay, I'm going to put that little rant away for now. Let's go back to the packaging. So it is a rather faithful recreation of the original box. The size is about right from what I remember. Again, I don't have like an original one to compare it to, but it seems about right. You got the original artwork here, which shows his original coloring and not so much the coloring of the toy. You get your Beast Wars logo, the evil Predacon Scorponok here. You get this little package shot, which actually does reflect the new colors. Then just a little bit more of all that stuff on top. On this side, you just get the Beast Wars logo with some more artwork. Same thing here. And then on the back, we get our tech spec card. Though, like all the other vintage reissues of the Beast Wars toys, it is severely truncated on the description and the stats too. And this is mainly due to the fact that they're now selling this in international packaging. So to fit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different languages on one tech spec card, they had to really shorten his description. I hate it. I understand they're trying to save money by having like one box for all over the world, but it really just puts a damper on this. And a lot of people that are going to buy these, vintage reissues, they're going to buy them for the box, right? For that nostalgia of having a Beast Wars box, and they're going to keep it in box. So when you greatly diminish just how good the packaging is, because you got to cram all the languages in there, I don't appreciate that. And I don't think any collector appreciates that. I mean, especially if you're going to charge $42 for a Mega Class toy, come on, you couldn't splurge to just, have one print for, US and like North American markets and, a couple other prints out there like you used to do. I get times are tough, but come on. So his very brief description here says, function, Desert Attack Commander. Scorponok surprises enemies 3 different ways: by launching its robotic bee, by firing a 2-shot missile blast, and by using its terrifying tail for poisonous cyber strikes. And that's it. That's all you get. They also, for some reason on these new toys, removed several of the old like tech spec stats. Like they don't have rank anymore. They don't have endurance, anything like that. I don't know why. I think they're just trying to modernize them with, the symbols and stats they've been using in newer toys, I guess. You do get your cool Beast Wars flavor text here, and then you also get your little Kenner symbol, because Hasbro owns Kenner, and they're going to cash in on that nostalgia just by slapping that logo on there, even though I think, as far as I know, Kenner proper has long since been like liquidated, so I don't know. So the box itself is very cool. It's a little bit compromised by, having to have all these languages on there, but it looks close enough. I think it's a really good recreation of the original. Okay, we have our instruction book for Scorponok, and it appears to be pretty faithful to the original. Right down to this little like front panel here where they have like the kind of smudgy renders of the beast and robot modes. Open this up all the way. Starts out showing us how to store the missiles inside the one claw, how to fire them, and then how to shut the claw to keep them from firing off. It shows you the little lever-activated tail, stinger attack, and then how to fire the bee and like fold it back up and replace it. And then on this side, we actually do the transformation. You can see it's very, very different from the Kingdom transformation. And then this shows the robot head reveal, and then just kind of showing off his little action features. So pretty simple. They're not nearly as easy to read as today's renders, which are much more accurate and are done through their like whole CAD file setup. So these are a little bit harder to read, and this one, might be kind of hard to know what you're looking at in some parts, but not too hard to figure out. Okay, now we get Scorponok's big old scorpion mode. And honestly, this toy, like the Scorpion mode, looks closer to his on-screen representation than the Kingdom figure. Kingdom had this weird thing where they were going for hyper-realistic beast modes, but they were also very inconsistent with applying that, because if they, applied that across the board, Dinobot would end up looking pretty weird. He'd basically turn into a giant lizard chicken, so, they were kind of choosy. I mean, even the Kingdom Scorponok, even though his proportions and everything looked more realistic, he's still like a purple and red and gray scorpion. I mean, So this new toy here, it does change out the blacks for more of this kind of like slate gray, which puts him a bit closer to that cartoon accuracy. But instead of going for the bright purple, he gets this really nice, like metallic, very organic insect shell looking shade of blue here, which I really like. I like it more than that bright purple color. He does still have a lot of red on him, especially on the legs. And look at that stinger. One of the things that I think a lot of people dislike about the Kingdom toy is that he's got a really wimpy looking stinger. And yeah, sure, it's more realistic because a scorpion stinger doesn't have this cool serrated blade. I mean, look how cool this thing is. Why wouldn't you put that on your toy? It's awesome. So checking out the action features now. Here's that little lever. Whoop, there goes the bee. Guess the bee wanted to go first. But anyway, you push this lever down, and it makes the tail extend, so you get that like little lightning strike action thing. It's pretty cool. You saw the bee. Guess we get a good look at him. There he is. Check him out. Honestly, he's pretty well detailed for something that folds up into a claw. He's even got like the 6 little insect legs here. So to fold him back up, you take this area, bring it up, close the wings around it, which become the top of the shell, fold this in. And then you plug it right back here. Now, I will say, at least on my copy, you see how easily that spring is triggered. And I think that's probably a function of just how old this mold is, right? It probably doesn't hold up like it used to. So that is one thing you might find kind of annoying about this. It's a cool feature, the fact that his claw ejects and turns into a, completely different animal. Really neat. but you just got to be very careful because this thing's kind of on a hair trigger, as you saw. Speaking of triggers, here's the other claw. So you can see the missiles down in there. Now these stay in there pretty well until you actually lift this up, and then they fire. Pretty neat little gimmick. Holds itself together a lot better than the B spring there. So yeah, this one's pretty safe, and then the bottom claw moves too and doesn't affect that. So you can have it closed all the way, you can have it a little open. Really neat little features. I wish the spring was, a little bit better. Well, it's not the spring. Actually, the spring's the problem. There's too much tension. It's this little plastic latch that holds everything together. It's a little weak. I wish that kind of hook on it was just a little bit longer to hold things better. And again, I think that's only a problem with this reissue because it's a very old mold. It's 25 years old, give or take. So, yeah. Now, getting a better look at the beast mode, you can see where that cartoon inspiration came from for the scorpion face. It doesn't look like an actual scorpion's face, right? It's more kind of reptilian looking with the way the eyes and the top of the head are laid out. What's cool is that the scorpion head here actually forms the feet of the robot. So these little like mandible things actually become the toes of the robot mode. So I think that's a really, really nice bit of transformation there. And you'll see really makes his proportions a lot better than the Kingdom figure. His legs are actually quite tiny, so that's one thing you may not like, because he does have some really small legs. The trade-off, though, is that they're not nearly as obtrusive on the robot mode as they are on the Kingdom figure, because they're a lot smaller. They just kind of neatly tuck away. And something I've said before, and I'll always say, when in doubt, when you have to choose between, the best alt mode you can have or the best robot mode you can have, go for the robot mode. Like, the vast, vast majority of collectors and, just casual buyers, they don't display their toys in alt mode. The overwhelming majority of people display their stuff in their robot mode, right? Because that's the character's, true form. That's what they actually look like. How many people have their Optimus Prime in his truck mode most of the time? And that rings true for Beast Wars toys, too. So while I get the desire to want to make the Beast modes better, don't do it at the expense of the robot. And we'll see here when we look at, compare the robot modes, just what happens when you do. Okay, here is our Kingdom Scorponok in his beast mode. And does he look like a real scorpion? Yeah, he does. I mean, colors aside, the proportions and everything does look more like an actual organic scorpion. However, is that necessarily a good thing? Because scorpions, though they're known for being, pretty vicious, pretty dangerous insects, they're not as cool looking as this thing right here. I mean, this guy has the capacity to actually scowl at you instead of just staring up at you with little beady eyes. He's got the huge claws, this giant serrated stinger. He's just cooler. So is this really what we want to do? Do we want to go this National Geographic route to our Beast Wars characters? Or do we want to have something that just looks cool and intimidating in both modes? Personally, I obviously lean toward the latter. Maybe there are people out there that prefer this. If you do, I'm happy for you that you got what you wanted. It does make for, a much more realistic looking scorpion. And I will say the longer legs are better looking in this mode. His legs are pretty tiny and insubstantial. But again, there's always going to be that trade-off, so, kind of be careful what you wish for there. All right, now it's time to transform Scorponok. And I'm going to go ahead and just set the little bee aside because I don't want that thing just firing off as I'm transforming him. So the way we start this, you go ahead, you unplug the robot legs, separating it out and kind of taking apart the beast head. You're going to bring them all the way back like this. Then you're going to bring his robot head up out of the tail. And you're going to fold all this in. And you have to line up to where this little circular peg right here goes into this middle hole. So just kind of fold it all up. Line it up till you feel it go in. There we go. All right. So I get that. Nice and simple. You just open the feet up here. You want to rotate the tail around 180 and then push it up at the base where it does this. And you take those scorpion legs and you just fold them back. And look how nice and neat that is. Just nice and flush up against the side. Actually kind of makes it look like ribs there, which is pretty cool. All right, so then you bring the shoulders down. Get his claws situated here. Oops. And I end up firing off another missile. 1 second. Seems my concerns were misplaced, huh? All right, get it back in there. Yeah. These will stay. You just got to be careful not to pull this, you know, top claw upward. All right. And, like, there it is. Pretty simple, but satisfying. Just kind of moving back. He's pretty tall because of the tail. And then we can go ahead and reattach his other claw here. Get it on there. Fight with it to get it to stay on. All right. So here's his robot mode. Now you can see by default, we're looking at his mutant head right now, which is, you know, much more insectoid looking. To reveal his true face, you just rotate these halves back. So you just work them out, and then you get something that's, you know, more similar to how he looks on the show. So when they, you know, made Scorponok CGI model, they based it off of this face. And the biggest giveaway is the visor for the eyes here. He actually has this really weird, almost vent-looking mouth in this mode. I don't know if it's supposed to look like some sort of vent, but it does. And then he does lack kind of the added, you know, mandible accents that they gave him on the CGI model. But this right here is just a really fantastic looking toy. And in a way, I kind of wish they would have kept the CGI model closer to the original toy here, because he looks awesome. I mean, this guy looks like he will mess you up. Now, personally, I actually prefer the mutant head to the regular robot head. The robot head's awesome, but I think the mutant head's a little bit cooler. And if I had to guess why they didn't go with that one, it's probably because they already had a couple characters that, you know, already had that very insectoid mutant head look for their CGI models. And they probably didn't want too many, you know, robots with mandibles for faces. That'd be my guess. So it's probably a good thing they gave him just a standard robot head for the show. But as far as the toy's concerned, I do actually prefer the mutant head. Now, as far as tolerances on this guy, everything appears pretty solid, aside from that loose spring issue that keeps rearing its ugly head. But the shoulders, they just rotate like this. And then you got a hinge that goes out. The arms only go down this far, so you can't have his arms completely at his side, which is kind of a shame. He does have this, like, bicep swivel here, and then, of course, the elbows bend, and the claws rotate. So he's got quite a bit of posability in the arms. The hips are on ball joints, which can cause them to, you know, kind of buckle under the weight there. He looks like he has a thigh swivel, but he really doesn't. It's just two pieces of plastic bolted together. But because of the ball joint, you do get some rotation. Got the single bend knees, and then the feet, they don't really rock so much. They just kind of splay out, which is a pretty standard, you know, 90s articulation for a Beast Wars toy. And overall, it's really good. Now, of course, he could be improved by, like, swapping out the ball joints and the hips for universals, because you'll have, you know, less issues with looseness there. But overall, you know, he's really solid. And I would say, you know, stands up to a lot of the toys that are out there today. Maybe the one thing he's actually lacking in articulation would be the ankle tilt, which is true. He, you know, would be better served with a little bit of ankle tilt, but it's not an absolute must. He stands up quite well on his feet as is. They're molded and shaped in such a way to where you can, you know, stance him a bit and he's not going to be like teetering around. So I like it. I'm very satisfied with this. Now, real quick, I want to show off what could be considered Scorponok's maximal counterpart. This is the other Mega Class toy that was sold with the same spring-loaded partner gimmick. And this is the Maximal Polar Claw. Now, where Scorponok's claw turns into a bee. Oh, now you want to stay shut. Polar Claws, you press this button here, one of his bear paws here, unfolds and becomes a bat. So both turn into, you know, some sort of like flying creature, and they both kind of match up to their respective partners better, right? Scorpion is some sort of a bug, and, you know, a bee just kind of works well with him, even though one's not actually an insect, but, you know, close enough. Both have exoskeletons. And then Polar Claw, you know, a polar bear, it's a mammal, gets a bat, which is also a mammal. So I think, you know, thematically they work very well. Now, I will say, I think Scorponok's partner is way, way cooler. This bat's just really kind of puny. And, I mean, it doesn't look much like a bat. Like, he's just got a bat head, and then the rest is just kind of a splayed open bear claw. The B, I think, works a lot better because he not only gets the head, but he actually gets little legs and he gets a little thorax right there. So, yeah, I think Scorponok wins out here. But it's still cool having them both. You can see that my Polar Claw has been the unfortunate victim of sunlight over the decades since his release, and just like the classic Tigertron toy, just turns very yellow when exposed to the sun. Sadly, there's not much I can do about that. So I just kind of wanted to show these guys off together and show off their partners, just so you can see how they compare. Alright, here's the part I've been waiting for. My chance to just absolutely dunk on Kingdom Scorponok. So here is our robot mode comparison. And you can see one of these is an awesome action figure, and then one of these is this sad little thing. It's just, the night and day difference here is amazing. Look how powerful and how awesome the original Scorponok toy looks. It really looks like somebody you do not want to mess with. And then you get this one right here, and he just looks like he has short man syndrome. Now, honestly, most of him, from like the waist up, looks totally fine and is very, very screen accurate. But then you get to this, you get to like the pelvic section down where, it looks like they just shrunk his lower body. I mean, it doesn't even, kind of naturally flare up to meet his chest. You know what I mean? It looks like somebody, like he's standing in a fun house, right? And just this part's being shown like a smaller mirror or something. Look at the streamlining here compared to this. Like, it's bad. And I mean, we always knew that it was really wonky looking, but seeing, what came before and then seeing what we have now, it's so sad to see how far that this guy has fallen. I mean, he's supposed to be relatively short. Scorponok is. He's not a big character. A Mega Class toy is way too big to be in scale with, your modern Kingdom figures. So you wouldn't want a new Scorponok being this big if you're, worried about making your cast be in scale with one another. But this right here, I mean, he's shorter than everyone, shorter than Black Arachnia, and it's all because of these tiny, tiny little legs. Why does he have tiny legs? Because the designers felt they needed to reinvent the wheel, give us this, hyper-realistic looking Scorpion mode at the expense of doing a transformation that, works for both. Honestly, they should have just copied how he does it. Run the legs up underneath, make the feet, be has the scorpion head. Yeah, it wouldn't be super show accurate because you would have, some like scorpion halves right there on the back of his feet. But it would have made for a far better looking toy. Because right now his legs are so comically small, you can't even take him seriously. Like, no one's afraid of this guy. Like, now, Scorponok, in the show, he was never the sharpest tool in the shed, but he was dangerous. He was a character you had to look out for. And this just looks like a joke. He looks like somebody with a real big Napoleon complex that would probably just get smacked around even by a relatively light fighter like Cheetor. So, yeah, I mean, I understand what they were going for, but I think they were trying to do too many things at once. They were trying to give us a show-accurate robot mode, but then a hyper-realistic beast mode, and it very much works to this toy's detriment. I mean, look how messily you have to fold his legs up on his back. There's not really even like an official way to do it. You just gotta kind of crisscross him in there until you get something that's kind of flush. Whereas this guy, he just gets, look how nice that is. Just wraps around, looks kind of like a rib cage, and it works. Look how long his legs are. I mean, he looks so cool. Even if he's not, a very convincing looking scorpion as far as the real life animal, he turns the cool factor up to 11 and really just puts the Scorponok to shame. And I think they really... I think the modern design teams are having a hard time understanding what it is that people really, really want. They seem to be just absolutely hell-bent on cartoon accuracy when it comes to the robot modes. And, that does often work to the detriment of the toy, I think. It leads to a lot of, fake kibble, often at times where the real kibble is simultaneously visible, a lot of cheated transformations, and at the end of the day, like, is it really better? Is it more satisfying when you make a core class hot rod and like the whole vehicle mode just ends up on the back of his legs? Like, I think they really need to reevaluate. Like, there is a market, don't get me wrong, there is absolutely a market for people that want these hyper show accurate toys. Well, that's what Masterpiece is for. You know, I mean, at this rate, the Masterpiece line has gone so hard into show accuracy, much to my dismay, because I used to love Masterpiece, that's really why that's there. Like, if you want that toy that has to have 100 steps to become a perfectly show accurate robot, that's what that's for. Generations, until very recently, has always had this really good blend of going for that recognizability in the character and making them accurate, but also, you know, taking what works from multiple different inspirations, whether it's the original toy, the TV show, comics, something else, and, you know, getting the best of both worlds. You don't get that here. You don't get that. And I think it's really just eye-opening to see how cool Scorponok can be. I mean, this is a toy that I always wanted, and just, you know, I didn't have the money to get a whole bunch of Beast Wars toys when I was younger, and this is the first re-release of this mold since, you know, the original. So it was very difficult to get my hands on one of these, and, you know, they're very expensive on the secondary market. A lot of the other figures for main characters have been re-released over the years, and not just recently. Like the Beast Wars 10th anniversary gave us a whole bunch, right? Your Optimus, Megatron, Cheetor, Tarantulas, we had Rhinox, so a lot of those were easy to get if you had missed out the first time, which I had. We're finally getting a new Scorponok now, and that's awesome. Now, do I wish that he actually had his original colors? Yeah. I don't see much logic or reason behind aiming for show accuracy in a vintage toy when you have Kingdom and, you know, upcoming Legacy, which is all about show accuracy. Why not, you know, keep the toys, keep them vintage, and then with your new figures, make them, you know, the characters from the screen. Unless, you know, you end up with this, then maybe you want to compromise a little bit. And I'll say that if I already had the original Scorponok, I wouldn't be nearly as eager to pick this up. If I already had the mold, I wouldn't see as much of a reason to pick up a slightly more, you know, show-colored version of that same toy. That's the way I feel with, like, the Optimus and Megatron that just came out in the vintage line. Like, I don't really need them. I already have that mold. So yeah, really just by being as awesome as he is, he just makes this guy even more of a joke. And I hate that any potential recolors of the Scorponok character, whether it's, you know, your Sandstorm, there's that toy colors version of this dude coming out, maybe a double punch down the line, they're all going to be this mold. And it doesn't do him justice. Not to mention, we've already seen the Sandstorm toy leaked, and for some reason they went with the mutant head on him, even though Sandstorm never was shown with a mutant head, but we'll get to that when I review Sandstorm. I don't want to prattle on too long. So I think I've made my point here. Great toy. Garbage. Absolute garbage. And this completes our look at the new vintage reissue of Beast Wars Scorponok. I don't think it's a secret, I absolutely love this toy. I think it is an awesome, awesome toy. Now, you know, again, it's not going to have much of a place in, like, your modern generation style collection. This is really for people that, you know, liked Beast Wars back in the day, or maybe they missed out, now they're trying to get caught up. And it's a lot of fun and really exemplifies just, you know, the design philosophy of Beast Wars at the time. It was all about coolness, right? They didn't care that a rat doesn't have razor sharp teeth. It was just that 90s edge, and it was so fun. And, you know, seeing this guy with his giant serrated blade stinger and his obnoxiously large claws and all that, it brings me back and makes for just a much more exciting figure than what we got in Kingdom. And now there are certain things about this guy I think, you know, should stay in the past. Like the spring-loaded gimmicks, while they're fun for a kid's toy, which is what this guy, you know, was really marketed as. There wasn't like a collector-oriented line back then. It was just whatever was out. That does need to stay in the past. Like, I am actually happy that the Kingdom toy doesn't have the spring-loaded gimmicks, because, you know, they get old, they fail over time. You saw how easily the B right here is triggered. So that's fine. I like that they're, you know, more static, like display pieces now for the new guy. But everything else about this guy, I think, is just so much better than the new toy. Everything about him is cooler. He just works so much better. He's just more exciting. Like, who's excited about Kingdom Scorponok? Like, people just kind of begrudgingly bought him because it's just the only, like, show-accurate Scorponok out there. Everybody dunks on that guy. The legs are so small. He's really goofy looking. He's so dissatisfying. And this guy is like the opposite of that. He just oozes coolness. Now, he is an absolute ripoff. We already touched on that. $42 for this thing is absolutely outlandish. When you look at like what $40 to $45 used to get you, I mean, you used to be able to get, you know, a leader class Revenge of the Fallen Optimus Prime, which was practically a masterpiece. Now, I get inflation's a thing, but yeah, I mean, you can't justify that price to me. They are really, really banking hard on that nostalgia right now. And yeah, I mean, like Cheetor was bad enough at $23, but this guy is really just, he hurts. The price hurts. So while I do recommend this toy, if money, you know, isn't very abundant for you, or you got to be, you know, a little more economically minded, you may want to wait till he goes on sale. Hopefully he does. Well, it's like, it's a double-edged sword. Like, hopefully he goes on sale for people that want him, but also that means he didn't sell well, so that's not a great thing. You know, it's a double-edged sword. If you want him and you have the money to spare, I think you'll be happy with your purchase. You won't be happy with how much you spent on him, but you'll really enjoy the toy. If you don't have, you know, enough funds laying around, just try to hold out. Hopefully they'll drop him down to, you know, $25-30, which I think is far more reasonable, because he is, the Mega class doesn't exist anymore, but it's basically Voyager, right? So if you can get him for about Voyager price, I think that's fair. I think you'll be more than satisfied then. So yeah, while I highly recommend him, I also understand that some people may want to hold out till he gets a little cheaper because he is very much overpriced. Of course, that is just my take on the Scorponok toy. Now I want to know what you all think of him. Are you excited to pick this guy up? Did you have the original Scorponok? And if you did, do you still see a reason to buy this? Or are you just pretty much good with what you got? Any and all feedback's always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. I thank you for joining me for this look at the new vintage reissue of Beast Wars Scorponok. And with all that said, I will see you next time.